I almost didn't answer the phone. It was a Tuesday night, just past 10, and I was sitting at my kitchen table trying to finish the last of a cold burrito I'd bought 3 hours earlier and completely forgotten about. My phone buzzed on the counter. A no number, but a local area code. I almost let it go to voicemail. I don't know why I didn't. Is this Nathan? The voice was familiar in a way I couldn't place immediately. Calm, low, a little careful, like someone who'd practiced what they were going to say and was now second-guessing all of it. Yeah, I said. Who's this? A pause. Just long enough to make me sit up straighter. It's Joanne. Joanne Whitfield. I was Becca's mom. I set the burrito down. Becca. Rebecca Whitfield, who I had dated for 2 years, who I had genuinely believed I was going to marry, who had sat me down at a Panera Bread of all places 14 months ago and told me she'd been seeing someone from her office for 6 of those 24 months, and that she was sorry, and that she hoped I'd eventually understand. I had not understood. I was still not fully sure I understood. And now her mother was calling me at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday. Joanne, I said. My voice came out steadier than I expected. Hi. I'm sorry to call so late. She stopped, restarted. I'm sorry to call at all, honestly. I know this is strange. It's okay, I said, which was not entirely true, but what else do you say? I'm in the parking lot of a CVS on Merchant Street, she said. About 6 blocks from your apartment. I didn't know who else to call. I stood up from the table without thinking. It was pure reflex, the kind of thing your body decides before your brain catches up. Stay there, I said. I'll come to you. I want to be clear about something. Joanne Whitfield was not a stranger to me. When Becca and I were together, I spent a lot of time at their house. Joanne was a landscape architect who worked mostly from home, and she had this habit of being in whatever room you wandered into. Not intrusively, just present. Making coffee or reading something on her tablet, always willing to talk if you wanted to, and never offended if you didn't. She was 51 and looked maybe 43 on a tired day. She had the kind of quiet confidence that comes from having actually lived through things. She and I used to talk about stuff Becca had no patience for. Old movies. Regional architecture. Whether the diner on Fifth had gotten worse or whether we'd just gotten more particular about pie. She remembered things I mentioned in passing. That I was stressed about a licensing exam. That my truck needed new brake pads. That I'd been trying to learn to cook something other than pasta. When I passed the exam, she sent me a card, an actual paper card, in the mail. After the breakup, I didn't hear from her. I didn't expect to. You don't get to keep the mother. So when I pulled into the CVS parking lot and saw her sitting on the curb near the cart return, still in what looked like work clothes, linen blazer, mud on her shoes, something tightened in my chest that I didn't entirely have a name for. I parked and walked over. She looked up when she heard my footsteps and tried to smile, and it almost worked. You came, she said. Of course I came. She had a tote bag next to her and what looked like it might be a laptop case. Not luggage, exactly. But not just a purse either. I sat down on the curb next to her because it felt wrong to stand over her, and for a minute neither of us said anything. The CVS sign hummed overhead. A guy came out with a paper bag and glanced at us and kept walking. Do you want to tell me what happened? I asked. She looked at her hands. She had a ring on her right hand that she'd moved there from her left sometime in the last year. I noticed it the way you notice things. You're not sure you should be noticing. I left, she said. Finally. Tonight. Her husband. Becca's father. I'd met him maybe 4 times in 2 years. He was the kind of man who fills a room by taking up all the available air, loud in a way that he thought was charismatic, and I had never once seen Joanne comfortable when he was in the same space. I had thought about that sometimes after the breakup. I thought, that's a woman who's been managing someone else's moods for a long time. Are you okay? I asked. She made a sound that was almost a laugh. I've been better. She looked at me sideways. I drove around for 2 hours. I couldn't call my sister. She's in Phoenix and she'd just worry. I have a friend from work, but she's in the middle of a thing with her own husband right now, and I just couldn't add to it. She paused. I thought about a hotel. I sat in the parking lot of a Marriott for 20 minutes. But you called me instead. I almost didn't. I'm glad you did. She looked at me then. really looked at me, and something in her expression shifted. Not quite relief. More like she was checking whether she'd made a mistake and was deciding that she hadn't. "I don't know why you'd be glad," she said. "This is not your problem." "You called me," I said. "That made it my problem. That's how it works." She didn't say anything for a second. Then, "Becca never deserved you." I didn't know what to do with that. I looked at the parking lot. "Come on," I said. "You're not sitting on a CBS curb all night." She slept on my couch. I gave her the good blanket from the closet shelf, the heavy one I only use in January, and I made up the space as well as I could with the extra pillow I normally have no use for. She thanked me in that careful way people thank you when they're embarrassed about needing something. I went to my room and lay on top of the covers with the light off and stared at the ceiling. This was strange. I knew it was strange. Joanne Whitfield was in my living room. A few months ago, she was my girlfriend's mother. Now she was, what? A person who needed somewhere to go and thought of me. That wasn't nothing. I kept coming back to that. Out of everyone she could have called, she'd called me. I didn't sleep much. In the morning, she was up before me, which I should have expected. I came out to find her sitting at my kitchen table with her laptop open and a mug of coffee in front of her. She'd found the coffee maker, found the coffee, made enough for both of us. There was a second mug already poured and waiting on the counter. "I hope that's okay," she said, nodding toward the mug. "More than okay." I sat across from her and drank the coffee, and she told me she'd already reached out to her attorney, a friend from college who did family law, and that she had a plan. She said it the way competent people say things they're afraid of. Clearly, flatly. Like if she kept the words short enough, they wouldn't be able to hurt her. "I have a call at 9, she said. "Then I'll get out of your way." "You don't have to be out of my way." She looked up from the screen. "Nathan, I mean it. Take the time you need." She studied me for a moment, and then she closed the laptop, just a little, like she was allowing herself to be in the room instead of behind a screen. "How are you?" she asked. Not "how have you been," the polite version. Actually, "how are you?" "I'm okay," I said. "Better than I was." "The job?" I'd started a new position about 8 months back. Project manager for a mid-sized commercial construction firm downtown. It was good work. I actually liked it. "Good," I said. "Really good, actually." "I'm glad." She wrapped both hands around her mug. "She made a mistake, you know, Becca. I never said that to her, but I want you to know I thought it." "You don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to." She looked at the table. "I watched you for 2 years. The way you were with her? Patient, present, not performing." She paused. "She got scared. That's all I know. She got scared. That's all I know. She got scared, and she made a bad choice, and I'm sorry you were the one who got hurt by it." I didn't say anything. There wasn't really anything to say. "Okay," she said after a moment and opened the laptop again. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." "Don't apologize for that." She glanced up. "Seriously," I said, "don't." She held my gaze for a second, and then she almost smiled, and that was somehow more than the full smile would have been. She stayed for 3 days. Not because I'd pushed her to. She had her plan, she made her calls, she was efficient and self-possessed, and clearly a woman who had been taking care of things on her own for longer than anyone had noticed. But the attorney process took time, and the timing of things meant she needed to wait before she could access certain accounts. And the friend with her own husband situation had reached a point where adding a house guest would have been genuinely complicated. I had the space. I said so. She argued. I didn't back down. She stayed. Redeveloped a rhythm that surprised me with how easy it was. She worked at the kitchen table in the mornings. I went into the office. I usually got home around 6, and she'd somehow, without making any kind of announcement about it, started cooking dinner. Not every night, and never anything elaborate. One night it was just soup from a carton with good bread from the bakery 2 blocks down. But she was there, and there was food, and we ate at the table and talked. We talked about everything. That's what I remember most. Not about Becca, not about her husband, not about the complicated geography of where our lives had collided. We talked about the construction project I was managing. A mixed-use building in a part of the city that was halfway through a 15-year identity crisis, and she talked about a commercial landscaping bid she was putting together for a property in the suburbs. and we talked about a documentary series we had both somehow separately started watching on different streaming services, and about the bakery bread and whether it was worth the $3 markup over the grocery store loaf, and whether the diner on Fifth had gotten worse, or whether we had gotten more particular about pie. That last one. When I said it, she laughed, or real laugh, not polite, and it filled the kitchen in a way that made everything feel slightly warmer. You remember that, she said. I remember everything, I said. And then I wasn't sure exactly what I meant by it. The second night she was there, we stayed up until almost midnight just talking. We weren't trying to. There was no moment where either of us decided to keep going. One topic led into another, and the clock moved and neither of us seemed to notice or want to be the one to stop it. At some point, she said, "Can I ask you something?" "Yeah." "Why did you come that first night?" "You didn't have to." I thought about it. Actually thought about it instead of giving the automatic answer. "I don't know," I said. "I picked up the phone and heard your voice, and I went. It didn't feel like a decision." She was quiet for a moment. "That's the thing about you," she said. "It never looked like a decision. It looked like just how you were." I didn't know what to do with that either. I looked at the table. "I should let you sleep," she said, and stood up, and that was that. But I lay in my room for an hour afterward with something sitting in the middle of my chest that I was not prepared to name. The third day, her sister called from Phoenix. I wasn't trying to overhear, but my apartment is not large, and I heard Joanne's voice from the living room, low and steady, explaining the situation in the same flat, competent way she'd explained everything else. And then a long pause where she was listening. And then, very quietly, I know, I'm okay." When she came back to the kitchen, she looked like someone who had just finished holding something heavy and was still figuring out where to set it down. "She wants me to come to Phoenix," she said. "Are you going to?" She sat down across from me. "Probably. Next week, after the call with the attorney." I nodded. That was the right answer. That was clearly the right answer. Her sister was family. Phoenix was the right move. I should have felt nothing but straightforward supportive about this. I did not feel nothing. "Good," I said. "That's good. You shouldn't be alone through this." "No," she agreed. She looked at me. "I haven't been." There was something in the way she said it. Careful and direct at the same time. Which was exactly how she said everything. "Joanne." "Don't," she said gently. Not cutting me off. More like she was making room for both of us to be in the same complicated space without it becoming something we couldn't take back. "I know what you're going to say. Or what you think you should say. And you're probably right." I don't think I know what I was going to say. "No." "No." She looked at me for a long moment. The afternoon light was coming through the window over the sink. The particular gold of a late October afternoon. And she looked, I want to be precise here. She looked like someone I had been looking for without knowing I was looking. "This is a terrible time," she said. "I know. I'm going through something enormous." "I know. And you were my daughter's boyfriend." "I know that too." She folded her hands on the table. "And you still don't know what you were going to say." "I was going to say I'd like to see you again," I said. "After Phoenix. After all of it settles. I'd like to, I don't know, get coffee. Talk about whether the diner has gotten worse." I paused. "I'd like to see you again." She looked at the table, then back at me. Her expression was not readable in a simple way. It had several things in it at once. Hesitation, something that looked like relief, something that looked like it wanted to be hope and wasn't sure yet if it had permission. "That would be a lot to navigate," she said. "Yeah." Becca would. "I know. People would think." "I know." "Nathan." "I know," I said. "I'm saying it anyway." She was quiet for a long time. Long enough that I started to wonder if I'd misread everything, if I'd made it strange, if she was going to say something kind and final. Then she said, "I'll call you. When I'm in Phoenix, if that's okay." "It's okay. I don't know what it means yet." "Neither do I. But I'll call." She did. 3 weeks later, from Phoenix, on a Sunday evening when I was sitting at the same kitchen table eating a burrito that was going cold because I forgot about it. My phone lit up on the counter, and I picked it up before it finished the first ring. "Hey," she said. "Hey." A pause. Comfortable. like neither of us needed to fill it immediately. "The diner on 5th," she said. "I've been thinking about it." "Yeah? I think it's us. I think we got more particular." I leaned back in my chair. Outside the window, the city was doing what cities do at 7 on a Sunday, quieting down into something almost like stillness. "I think you're right," I said. And I was still smiling when I set the phone down an hour and a half later, which was the longest I'd smiled at anything in longer than I wanted to admit. I didn't know what we were. I still don't. Not exactly. There's a lot of road between a phone call and anything you could give a name to, and there are conversations ahead of us that I'm not pretending will be simple. Her daughter is a real person. Her life is in the middle of restructuring itself from the ground up. Mine is quieter and less dramatic, but not without its own complicated corners. But I know what it felt like to drive to a CVS parking lot at 10 on a Tuesday night because someone needed me to. And I know what it felt like to sit at my own kitchen table and feel, for the first time in over a year, like the room wasn't too quiet. Some things don't announce themselves. They just show up at the door, and you either open it or you don't. I'm glad I opened it. I've thought a lot about that Tuesday night. The cold burrito. The unknown number. The half-second where I almost let it ring out. What would have happened if I had? Joanne would have sat on that CVS curb a little longer. Probably called a hotel. Probably been fine in the functional sense of the word. And I would have gone to bed not knowing what I'd missed. That's the part that stays with me. Not the dramatic version of what happened, but how quietly it almost didn't. I think about cause and effect a lot more than I used to. Not in the mystical way. Not like the universe was arranging things. More like, every decent thing that happened between me and Joanne traces back to a series of small choices that each could have gone the other way. I answered. I drove. I didn't make it weird when she found the coffee maker in the morning. I told the truth when she asked why I came. None of those were grand gestures. They were just the honest thing, chosen one at a time. That's something I didn't understand when I was younger. That integrity isn't a single dramatic moment where you stand up for something in front of a crowd. It's the Tuesday night decision. The quiet one. The one nobody's watching. Joanne had spent years being steady and capable inside a marriage that didn't see her clearly. She hadn't made a scene. She hadn't performed her unhappiness for anyone. She had just, finally, when she had no more runway left, chosen herself. That took more courage than most people will ever have to find. And I think about what she said to me. That with me, it never looked like a decision. It looked like just how I was. I didn't know how to take that at first. But the longer I sit with it, the more I think that's the thing worth building toward. Not the version of yourself that does the right thing when someone's watching and the stakes are obvious. The version that does it at 10 on a Tuesday because it simply doesn't occur to you not to. Becca leaving the way she did. That wrecked me for a while. I won't pretend otherwise. But it also clarified something. It made me pay attention to what I actually wanted, instead of what I'd told myself I was supposed to want. And somewhere in that year of being quiet and a little lost, I got more honest. With myself, with what I needed, with what I was willing to offer. That's not nothing. Sometimes the painful things are doing something useful even when you can't see it yet. What happened with Joanne? I still don't know exactly what to call it. But I know it started with showing up. With being the kind of person who picks up the phone and drives across town not because he's heroic, but because someone needed him to, and he was able to. That's it. That's the whole thing. I hope whoever's listening to this has someone like that in their corner. And I hope, more than that, that you're working on being that person for someone else. It doesn't require anything extraordinary, just the willingness to answer and then to show up, and then to stay honest about what you find when you get there. That's all it ever is.